Robyn Hatcher is a communication and leadership professional speaker and owner of the boutique consultancy SpeakEtc. As a former actor and soap opera writer, she once got paid to create drama. Now she works with leaders from Fortune 500 companies, human services organizations, and noteworthy brands to help mitigate the drama in their workplace by creating magnetic leaders that people are drawn to and want to follow. Robyn, welcome.
Thank you, Mike, for having me. I'm so
Yeah,
happy
it's
to be
it's
here.
it's probably a long time coming. So Robyn and I know each other. What is it, 4 years now?
Gosh,
3 or 4, I
when
don't know.
did you
Robyn and I
join
know each other
NSA?
from the National Speakers Association, the New York City chapter, and we were on the board together for 2 years. She was
Yes,
just president. And by the way, I was
yes.
president many years ago of a volunteer organization, and it was the hardest thing I
Yeah.
ever did. So I mean, so you made it look easy, but it probably wasn't, right?
Yeah, it can be easy, it can be hard. And in reflection, and I hear you because this is my second volunteer board presidency. I was, and God help me, I was a president of a
Oh boy.
PTA. And I feel like it's like childbirth. If you could be president of a PTA, you can do freaking anything. And so that's how I learned. And it was so interesting because I learned from the people that were previously in that position were terrible leaders. And I feel like I learned more from them about how to lead than I learned
Yeah,
from
thank
anybody
God. I
else.
think we've got a good chapter and you have a good board where a lot of volunteer
Yeah.
boards are like, it's hurting, not hurting cats, hurting flies. And I think
Yeah.
you had some better folks in that. So that was great.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like choosing the right people in your team and like going and actively selecting them and letting them know that you're selecting them for a reason. And then you just sort of empower them to do
Yeah.
what they
Yeah.
do
So that
best.
sounds familiar, like what
Yeah.
any leader should do. And the last thing I have to say, but before we dive into the normal interview is, my favorite photograph in the world is me and Robin's son. How is he, 6'7"? He's six
Six,
six. It doesn't
six.
matter. If you're over like 5'6", you're tall to me. So
Right,
I'm
right,
I'm
right.
5'4" on a good day, and he and I took a picture
Mhm.
together, and you see all of him, and you just see my forehead, and
It's a
it's
lovely forehead,
it's the
Mike. It
best.
really
It's
is.
my favorite. I look great in that picture. Anyways, let's dive in. So the name of the show is the Better Leadership Team Show, and we're certainly going to talk about drama in the workplace today. But because it's the Better Leadership Team Show, first question I always ask Robyn is, in all your experience, what do you believe is the one most important characteristic of a great leadership team?
The number one is diversity. And I'm not talking DEI here. I'm talking diversity of thought, diversity of communication styles, and diversity of like psychological safety, their makeup, their culture. Because when you have a diverse leadership team, you've got all of these great perspectives, you've got all these different styles. And if you've got different styles in there, then they can counteract and also help drive the creativity, the innovation, the everything. It drives everything to have not just a one size fits all type of person who's on your
It's an
leadership team.
interesting one because one of the things that I do with my clients, and many coaches do this, it doesn't make me unique, but one of the things I do with my clients is, if they don't already have it, we figure out what their non-negotiable core values are. And the core values are
Mhm,
typically
mhm.
3 to 6 things, these
Yeah.
non-negotiable behaviors that anchor their culture. And it is always interesting, the balance between, we have to have all people that act in these ways or don't act in these ways,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
somehow balancing that with, yes, we need that, but we also need diversity in thought. And if everybody is kind of
Yeah.
just a robot working in the same way with the same style, we're all going to have the same blind spots.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, I feel like we could have the same values and have completely different styles because there are so many ways of getting at that value or so many ways of seeing and objectifying and valuing that particular value. So that a lot of times when we think, oh, this is our value and this is what we need to get there. But there may be another way. There may be another way that you can also represent that value that is not in your vocabulary
Yeah,
and could
just
be in
like there's
somebody
not
else's.
one way to be a great leader, there are an infinite number of leadership styles. So I want to get to
Yeah.
the heart of drama in the workplace and how we do that. So let
Mm.
me start, I guess, because I've been out there doing this for the better part of 35 years. So I've certainly seen, actually 35 plus years. So I've certainly seen my share of drama in all workplaces.
Oh,
But
yeah.
why is there so much drama in the workplace?
Well, I think it's almost what we were just talking about. One of the reasons why there's so much drama is because there are so many different types of people and different styles. And no matter how brilliant we are, no matter how self aware we are, no matter how many assessments we've done, we all are married to our own style. And we feel like it's our way is the right way. And we forget that someone can be so diversely different. It's like I've had leaders like they're talking to somebody as if they're speaking German because they speak German. I speak German. Listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. But the other person doesn't understand German. They just do not understand it. And so I feel like that's where so much of the drama comes from. Because, and also what we almost started talking about is values. People then step on other people's values without knowing it. And then I just had a client today, and she loves data. I mean, and she's in sales, right? So she's talking about, and she wants all of her managers and all of her reps to be about the data and read into the data and make decisions based on the data. However, she's got a couple of people in her team that are data averse, and it's like they have these other qualities. They have this humanity, they have this interactivity, they have all of this charisma in people. And so when they see the data, they just freeze. And so what in her head, it's like, well, if they're not using the data, then they're wrong and they're bad and they're not doing their job and they have to get on a pip. And so I was talking to her and saying how, this person is great at what she does well. And one of the things you have to do is find out how you can relate the data to what she values, which is people and progressive and connection. And so you can create that story and then have that. So in other words, like the drama comes from that person is bad, that person is wrong because they're not doing things the way that I would do it.
How much of that is what I mean, maybe what if it is a role, just to keep with it with this example? What if the role that it is in is one where data is critical, right? Then it's yes, there's
Yeah,
drama, but does that seems to go beyond just style and into
right.
maybe they're not right for the role.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what that's sometimes what needs to happen, and that's not even drama, that's just leadership, it's like, "Okay, that's the wrong person for this bus seat right now, so we're gonna get that person off the bus, or we're gonna tell." And I have found, however, that because my love and my piece is communication, I have found that there are ways that you can communicate certain things that can then sort of shift the person's story and thus shift the person's view so that they can see things slightly differently. And yes, there are some times when there is a completely the wrong person. Now, that's like one aspect of drama, but there are tiny little things like drama, like just complaining, gossiping, all of that kind of stuff that leaders kind of throw under the carpet sometimes. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to come and vent. Sometimes venting creates more drama. You allow people to vent and then they get stuck in that story that they're telling themselves. And then that story gets bigger and they get very immersed in the truth of that story. And their productivity goes by. Then they go and they talk to somebody else about that drama and that story. And then that creates a whole culture that is not trusting each other, not valuing each other, not seeing through. And so we have to take responsibility and have some sort of commitment to valuing and seeing people as they are and not just judging and complaining.
How I want to dig into you giving some examples of drama, but is there good drama versus bad drama? Or in the way you define
Because
drama, is it all bad?
no, there is some good drama. It's like, hey, I used to write for the soaps, right? So, like, when I was writing for soaps, I had to create like the storyline and the plot and the characters. And so that's what happens in good drama is like, oh, there's a great, interesting character in this scene. How can I pull the best out of that character? And then together we create a wonderful scenario, So there's that part of drama. And like what we're doing in the culture now, most of the time, drama is negative. And the excess of drama is negative. So anything done to excess is going to be negative. And that's why soaps versus like just a regular television show or soaps are so expanded and bigger than life. And that's what happens with drama in the workplace when it is going against. But there is some kind of drama, like characters, putting the right characters together and getting a really beautiful love scene. It's like hopefully not a love
Hold
scene.
on, I'm calling HR right now.
I know, right, right, right. And that's what, our board was. My board this year is like we had immense love for each other because we saw each other for what they were. Oh, wow, that person's really good at that. Oh, let me lean into that person for this and let me lean into that. So that could be like, if you want to look at it like that could be the
But
great drama parts
what
of it.
about conflict? Because to me,
Mhm.
there is, there is a school of thought that is like, hey, this is business. Don't get emotional. And I'm like, screw that. There's nothing wrong with getting emotional. I am fine if a leader is pounding their fist on the table because they really believe in something. But in my mind, where it goes over the line, and I want your thought, where it goes over the line is when there's conflict, even arguing about an idea. To me, if that's done in a respectful way, that's good drama. But when it becomes conflict and arguing that is more personality based, then that's bad. And that's not the only example of bad drama, but how do you fit kind of, conflict, even if it sometimes
Yeah.
gets heated? Where does that fit on the drama spectrum?
Yeah, the thing with conflict when it gets heated and what you're talking about, I totally agree. It's like there has to be conflict because like we said, if we're looking for diversity, we're going to have diverse communication styles. We're going to have diverse types of thought. So you're going to have conflict. And so there is good conflict. And when it goes overboard, and it's exactly like you said, is like you are blaming the person and not the situation. And that's what really happens when we're not having an organization. And I know you do a lot of team building with that, where the teams respect each other as they are. And so if they respect each other for who they are and as they are, when the conflict comes on, we're not attacking you as a person. We're having a different discussion around your ideas. And one of the techniques I like to give is like I give something that I call the love technique. You want to listen, you want to understand, you want to validate what's being said, and then you express or explore what your differing opinion is. And so when you're doing a love, that's conflict. That's how you can deal with conflict without yelling, without like digging your heels in, by showing the love for each other, by understanding and then moving forward. And the other thing that I love to share with people around conflict is how important curiosity is. We negate curiosity these days so much because I feel like I like to call it maybe the Google generation is like, I'm not going to ask any questions because I feel like I can look it up. But the curiosity, and one of the things I tell all of my clients and all of my leaders is when somebody does something that you disagree with or feels like drama to you, get curious. Why are they doing it? What is going on? What is the story behind that? Not just that person's a bad person, they have really bad ideas, I got to get rid of them. Start asking questions, start really figuring out what could be behind that and what could the story be that you're believing that is not actually
I
happening.
love that. And I think to get curious, it's got to start with a belief about the other person that they have positive intent. That I call it the law of
Right.
positive intent. That everyone's
Yes,
just
totally.
trying to do the best they can with the resources they have.
Yeah.
And if you believe that, to your point, instead of immediately getting angry, we get curious as to, if they're best they can, I wonder why they believe the answer is different than mine. Maybe there's something I'm missing.
Yeah.
So let me ask questions about it. So I
Exactly.
love that. So you
Exactly.
gave some examples of the love acronym and curiosity, but let's kind of step back. So if if I'm a leader and I've got too much drama on my team, maybe it's
Okay.
between two people, maybe it's this click over here and this click over here, but I'm a
Mhm,
leader
mhm.
in the organization and I see that there is drama that is harmful to the culture, drama that's harmful to reaching our vision. What do I do? Is there kind of a step-by-step approach? How do I handle that?
Yeah. So you want to get to the root cause of it. And I feel like that curiosity is really going to be an important part for the leader. And one of the parts of curiosity is like one of the things that I will do is I will have each leader assess who's on their team, assess their communication style. Like I have an assessment tool that I call actor types. It's based on my books. It's based on different types of actors that show up on film and TV. So I sometimes will give an overview of what these actor types is. Sometimes I'll use a disc assessment or just have them say, okay, these are the types of people on my team. And so, okay, we'll look at this and then we'll look at who's interacting with whom. What is your primary communication style? Because I know we're all varies degrees of different ones. And so, what's your primary thing? So then we look at, is this style really contrasting with that style? If so, how can we adjust the communication so that it flexes and that the other person gets heard? Just like my analogy of Greek versus German. It's like, how do I teach that person a little bit of French or Greek so that they can communicate with that person better? How can I then see or show where that communication disconnect is? Some of the things that I've done sometimes is just showing a person what the other person is understanding based on their communication style and type. And then it becomes like, really? Why would they think that? And it's like, yeah, because that's how it is, because that's how our brain is wired. Our brain is wired for survival. And so what's happening here in this drama in your team is that person thinks that this person is going to kill them based on the way the tone or the content or the choices of word choices that they're using to communicate. And when somebody feels like they're going to be killed, they're going to lash out. And so really figuring out what that who those people are on your team, teaching them a communication style, teaching them a way to flex their style or communicate their style. Or sometimes it's just like being out and open, just saying, you know what, Mike, when you say this to me, it makes me feel like this and it drives me crazy and I'm going to act like this. And, or it could say, you know what, Mike, I can be really loud and obnoxious. Doesn't mean that I don't like you. It just means that that's who I am. So there are some ways of addressing it right out in the open like that.
So
Does that
yeah,
answer your question?
yeah, so we're done. Goodbye. You answered all my questions. So no, I'm very familiar with DISC, and I want to come back to a little
Yeah.
bit to some of my experience and see if you can help me in the way I think about it. But I'm interested because you've got these actor types, you call them. What are some
Yeah.
examples? Make that real for me. What are some of the actor types? Because
Yeah.
I'm trying
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
figure
Some
out
of
who
the
I
actor types,
am.
like
Am I
a lot of
Pesci,
them,
De Niro? Who am I?
a lot of them coincide with some of the disc types or some of the other familiar types. And so we've got our hero, which is our charismatic, um, love to be loved. If they had a motto, the motto would be get applause. They walk in the room, they are the center of attention. People love to love them or be in their presence. They have a lot of influence. That's our hero. And then we have the buddy, the buddy is a type that loves to be friendly with everybody. They need to get along. So their motto is get along. And so they are the ones that are be more like the S type, that they are supportive, they are loyal. They also, and I'll get to that in a minute. Then the third one is our superhero. Superhero is different from the hero because the superhero is like, I want to get it done. I got it like this.
High
They
D
go
on the
right
disc
in, you
disc
know,
scale. Yeah.
yes. And then our last one is our whiz kid, which would be our C. Our whiz kid is the one who loves data, loves strategy, loves processes. Their motto is get it right, whereas his superhero is get it done. And so the way that I describe it, when you write for TV or you write for film, there's always the fatal flaw. You can't write a script without your hero having a fatal flaw. because then nobody would believe it. So everybody lives happily ever after. It's like nobody, it's boring. And so all of these characters, no matter how great they are in the workplace or as leaders, they all have a fatal flaw that if they lean too much into one type, it comes out. And so if you've got the hero type, they're charismatic and all, and sometimes they rely so much on their charismaticness, their charisma, and all of that, that what happens is they lose their vulnerability and they get really caught up in being the one or the center of attention. And their team starts to see them as invulnerable, inauthentic, and they don't trust them. And then I've got your buddy. And then just like the buddy, if you're always wanting to be liked and always wanting people to get along, that fatal flaw is people will step all over you. There's no sense of boundaries. You don't know how to say no. You don't know how to push back or, get that wrong person off the bus. You keep them on the bus for too long. And then you've got the superhero. The superhero is so focused and so direct that so many other types find that aggressive and annoying and mean. And so a lot of times they don't really mean to be mean, but that's how they're coming across. And so that creates really a lot of drama on a team. And the thing with that, when that drama happens, that's when people, and I have a couple of clients that this is happening, that's when people start talking amongst themselves, like the grapevine starts happening. And then it's like a termite. Just wrote a piece about it. It's like a termite, and you don't know what's happening. People are complaining behind your back because a superhero isn't listening, or sometimes it even happens with the hero. They're not listening, so all these termites get together in
The
another
meeting
piece of
after
the
the
wood
meeting.
and start
Yeah, the meeting
complaining.
after, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And then the whole culture starts falling apart. It's like, what happened? I was just being a good leader. And then the whiz kid is like, there's so much detail that most people don't need the detail. And you get lost in the detail and you get lost in being so analytic that people don't see you as a human being. They don't see you valued. They don't feel like you value them. And so that can really ruin a team and a team culture because the whiz kid is so focused on the facts or giving too much information that, nobody really cares about. So
How
that's
do
part. Yeah.
you, or where do you draw the line between using, whether it's the actor types, which I love, or disc, where do you draw the line between understanding who you are and others and using that for good? And, I see that very clearly, but I have also seen almost just as much people using it as an excuse to act like an ass. It's like,
Yeah.
I know I sound, I'm a high D. I'm always going to be that way. It's like,
Mhm,
no, it's not an
mhm.
excuse to be a jerk, but I have seen so many people using it in
Yes.
that way. So how do you help individuals, especially leaders, make sure they're using it for good as opposed to using it to make excuses for bad behavior?
I love that question because I'm so tired of people saying, "Oh, I just want to be my authentic self." It's like, come on. And what I like to call it is aligned authenticity. What we need to do is align our authenticity for the need or the place or the situation that you're in. And if it's not aligned, then don't bring it. And so I love that question. And one of the ways that I answer that is like the best leaders have to be Meryl Streep. And when you think about Meryl Streep, her natural actor type would be a buddy. But look at her in Devil Wears Prada. Look at her in all those other films. She can morph and adapt her style into whatever is needed in the situation so that the audience believes her, so that the director believes her and casts her, and so that the movie thrives. That's what a good leader needs to be. No matter what your style is, you need to know how to flex in order to show up in the style that your team needs at the moment, to show up in a style that particular person needs or the situation or your client needs in the moment. And that's not about being inauthentic. It's about being a good leader and knowing how to flex and adjust so that you can be effective no matter what your natural
So
style
I love
is.
that. So it's about that adaptability. It's about the flex.
Mhm.
The other, because there were two things that come to mind when I think of the actor types of the disc. One we just talked about, but the other is, and this frankly has been my challenge, and I am a high D. I'm
Mhm.
definitely the superhero high D. I can remember years ago back in my consulting days working for Accenture, like been called Accenture back in the late 80s. And I have always had this ability where one of my real skills is I could take a complex situation and simplify it down. And I remember sitting in a group of folks, and there was a woman at the whiteboard who was on my team who was trying to figure out this problem and writing all this stuff down. And I'm like, this is simple. And I got up and I literally grabbed the marker out of her hand, asked her to, I don't know, I probably told her to sit down. And I said, look, all we have to do is A, B, C. Does anybody see it any differently? And everybody went, yeah, that's right. And I thought, what a great job I just did, not knowing I just
Mhm.
crushed this other person. How many of the other folks, even though they thought I was right, how many of them thought, what a jerk? I'm sure they did.
Yeah.
This has hit me loud and clear. And the challenge I've always had, even after going through years of training on this kind of stuff and doing neuro linguistic programming where it's more than just
Yes.
understanding if someone
Mhm.
looks up
Right.
and to the left or down and to the right and all that stuff.
Right.
And frankly, I'll be honest, I am so focused on me and what I want to say that I learn this stuff, but I've never gotten good at actually paying attention. Like, I know when I meet someone, there are questions I can ask to figure out real quickly whether they're a D, an I, an S, or
Mhm.
a C, or what, or now that I know the actor types, you could figure that. But I'm so on what I want, and I'm a coach, damn it. I ought to be better at that. But I'm so focused at what I want that even though I learned this and I learned disc and I was certified in disc, it's just never front of mind. So how do you help people help me? How would you help me make sure that I'm actually using this versus learning it and saying, "Oh, that's really interesting," and then throwing it away?
Yeah. I love that question because it's so true because I mean, what you said is like, that's a problem with human nature, and that's a problem with team. We're together. We're all focused on me. It's all about me. And why should I care about somebody else? And that comes into emotional intelligence. And so really upping that emotional intelligence portion of it. And like with the NLP is to actually be able to feel it viscerally. And that's one of the things that I've been working on with a lot of my executive coaching clients. It's like to take a deep breath and feel where you feel it. It's like because you feel when you're triggered. It's like eventually, if you really keep thinking about it, you take just count, because that whole brain science thing is like we react very quickly. However, I think there is 1/5 of a second between the stimulus and the reaction. And so within that time, you have 1/5 of a second. It doesn't seem that long, but it can be when you look at the Olympics. It can be, it's like to take that deep breath and think, okay, where am I? How am I feeling? What's my body feeling? How do I really want to react? And it is like training. And that I've learned so much about training a puppy because we just got this puppy, and it's like, it has to be repeated so many times before it gets in their body, before it even gets into my body, of like how to train them. And so it really is that kind of thing that, okay, I'm going to consciously, and one of the exercises I give my executive coaching clients is like, just take a week. Don't do anything for a week. Take a whole week to observe. Take that week to observe a conversation. How are you feeling about it? How does it feel in your body? What? Oh, that's weird. Get curious about why they said that. And then, you're building up your vocabulary. It's almost like with acting and drama, you're building up with the character. Every time, you've got a script to rehearse, the director has to ask the actor, how does it feel to you? And that's why there are so many rehearsals. And that's why, I'll do role plays with people during coaching or doing training sessions. That role play with somebody is like, oh, get it in your body, get it in your body. And because I feel like there's that connection, there is like the mental, we can think it, but until we've learned it, until we've lived it, and experienced it, it's not going to stick.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say emotional intelligence, and and basic. But one of the things, again, back to this pretty intense neuro-linguistic programming,
Yeah.
NLP training I did a number of years ago, part of what we did, and it was the guys in the group that had a bigger challenge with this. There was an exercise we did different points. You had to say, what feeling you were having. And
Mhm.
for a lot of us, it's like, are there more than three feelings? Like
Right.
there's happy, there's
Exactly.
sadness, there's anger. Like what else is there?
Right,
And
right, right.
literally, I remember, I don't have it anymore, but right on my cork board over my desk was this continuum of like 100 or 150 different emotions. And just like, no, there's
Yeah,
also joy. There's
yeah,
also, there's all these different,
uh,
and literally just understanding how to define the emotion you're having sounds like a really simple thing, but for some of us, it's not so simple.
it's really yeah, because the main thing of, emotional intelligence I did NLP training as well. Main thing of, emotional intelligence is self-awareness, and the interesting thing is, like, there's such a new discovery around emotion these days. It's like there is not one size fits all emotion either, so you've got this chart, and your joy is gonna look completely different than my joy. And it's not even gonna read the same necessarily. There's some really great books on the people who are studying emotion. It's like because a lot of emotions are based on the first time you've experienced it. So if the first time you've experienced anger has to do with this like, loud, awful, like that's your association with anger, whereas somebody else may not have discovered or felt anger until they were like 12 or 13 years old, and so it's a whole different type of anger. So it's very interesting emotion is like identifying. And so one of the things that's been coming up a lot is like sometimes I feel like a therapist is I'll have these clients be triggered by something, a leader is like triggered by something, and then I'll just ask really simply, it's like, what does this remind you of? And a lot of times it'll go back to a family situation, somebody who treated them differently as a child, and they don't realize that they are being triggered by a leader or a conversation or an encounter that is just immediately bringing them back to something in the past that they thought they had dealt with. And so it's really important to realize that. And that's the other thing about the drama piece is like when you're an actor, you're taught to like go back into your emotions and figure out what you are feeling so that you could bring that emotion forward. And so what we want to do as leaders is almost go in reverse and like see what that emotion is, see where it triggered and see it's like, oh, that is not my Uncle Tom right there. That's
Yeah,
Michael.
that's why I
It's
hear,
like,
and I
okay,
do get this from leaders all the time who are like, they're like, I'm not sure why I'm so frustrated by that. But
right,
he said this and I
right.
react and I know it was the wrong. I don't know why
Hmm.
I'm so frustrated. So that's what I need to call you and say, help them figure that out.
Yes.
So we talk about communication styles, and I know Robin, and I don't know if these are synonymous or if it's different thing, but you also talk about understanding somebody else's psychological needs. Is that similar
Hmm.
to the communication styles, or is that now a different animal we're talking about?
Yeah, well, there's that whole psychology between we react for a reward and we act against threat. We go towards reward, we go against threat. So when you think about it, is there are these emotional needs that people have in the workplace that when they are not met, they go into their survival mode and then they get triggered. And it's something that I call the ICU needs. And I call them ICU needs for two reasons. One is because it's intensive care. The alphabet ICU is like sometimes these needs need intensive care. And the other thing is to counteract sometimes the ICU needs is to actually be seen, ICU needs, and so some people have a really high need and they coincide with the types, but they're not exactly matched. But so some people may have a need to feel important all the time, and so when you're in a situation and you have a high need to feel like you're the most important or that you have higher status, and someone is not treating you in that way, that's when you start to act out and you don't like, what's going on? And because your survival seems to be tied to the fact that you want to be important. Like if you're not important, something in your brain says, oh, I'm not going to survive. I'm going to die. And it's all based on that. And so somebody does something that undermines your importance, like, oh, I'm furious. So some people have that. And then some people have a high need for connection. So those are the people similar to the buddies, but that high need for connection. And you walk into an office and you don't say hello to that person's day is completely ruined. It's like, okay, Robyn hates me. I don't know what I'm doing. And so their productivity and everything falls away. So that's a psychological need. There's inclusion, the need for inclusion. There's a need for clarity, having everything very clear. There's a need for independence. People need to be autonomous. They don't want to be micromanaged. So those are the people that if they don't have choices, if they don't have a leader that gives them autonomy, a little bit of autonomy, they're going to feel like their survival is threatened. And so they're going to act out accordingly. And then you've heard a lot about it with the younger generation, a sense of need for purpose. And a lot of us need purpose. We need to feel like what we're doing matters. And that's why one of the main things I feel like leaders need to do is talk about the why behind their giving an instruction. It's so simple in some ways, but there's so many people that don't do it. It's like, just go and do this, but why? How is that affecting the company? How is that affecting our numbers? How is that affecting or impacting the world or whatever? And some people need that. And when they don't need it, they feel psychologically
So
unsafe.
is it true to say there are probably a set of needs that we all have at some level, at different
Yes, we
levels. And then there's there's a set of needs we all have, but there are different levels. So that makes us unique. And there may be a set of needs that, well, this person has that need, but these two people don't have that need. So bottom
right,
line is
right.
we have different needs at different lower or the same needs at different levels or different needs. So as a leader, how do we start to understand? God, it'd be really easy if we all had the same needs at the same level. Write a book about that. We'll
Right,
all read
right,
it. We understand it. We could act accordingly. But
right,
given
right.
that we are all so unique, as a leader, what can we do to better understand the psychological needs of the
Yeah.
individuals on our team?
Yeah, it's similar for the typing is like you want to listen. You want to make sure that you're listening and paying attention to what people are either coming back at you with, people are asking questions about, people are reacting to. So if somebody comes to you and constantly asking about what is this mean? Why are we doing this? Then you know that they have a higher need for purpose. If somebody's like, so when's my next raise? So how far do you know that they have a stronger need for importance. But there was something that you did just physically that made me think about an analogy, and it's true. It's like with all these needs, it's like a sound mixer. It's like when you have a sound mixer, because we all have these needs. It's like in some appear, and then different days we have different. It's like, okay, let's mix the sounds. Like, oh, ooh, it's off today. It sounds very dissonant. And how can we then play music that everybody can enjoy? Because you wanna hit as a leader, you wanna hit on all these needs anyway, because somebody's gonna need it at some point. And then when you're working individually, you think, "Okay, that person needs this at this time." So it's really being a great musician, it's feeling being a great sound mixer or something so that you can hit all of these levels at some sort of time and being aware of them at some point in time. And let's face it, we're not always going to get it right. And it's not our job to always get it right because people have to take responsibility for their own needs as well and being able to communicate what they're not getting. And so a lot of times it's like when we're talking about types and shifting and flexibility, I also feel like we want to be real in the fact that the onus falls on both parties.
Yeah. So as an individual, it's on you to help your team, your peers, your leader, your direct reports, help them know what your needs are. Don't make them guess. But as a
Exactly.
leader and just as a team member, it's also your responsibility to listen. And just like DISC
Yeah.
or the actor types, there are assessments out there I know as well. I remember years ago, I took an assessment called the values assessment. And it was like 7 key values. And it wasn't whether you
Yeah, yeah.
value, it was what level do you value those things? And
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I do a thing on motivation. I have an assessment on motivators, so it's like what level of the motivation that you have and that, yeah, those values too. Yeah, yeah, it's fascinating. And that whole listening piece is so important. I heard this from, and I don't know, can't remember who it was, but steal it. And I really would love to give credit to them. But those 3 levels of listening, it's like so many times as leaders, it's like we either listen to win, we listen to fix, or we listen to learn. And when you're listening to win, it's like, okay, my idea is better, just like you did with a team member. It's like, I'm listening. I'm not going to listen anymore. I'm just going to go and win
She
this
still
argument,
probably
right?
hates me. And that was
Exactly.
34
She's gonna be
years
telling you
ago, and
that
she probably
story.
still wants to kill me.
She's probably telling that story. I had this guy on my team. And then, the story that she's telling, it could be misogyny. It could and so we blow all these things up. So she may have dramatized this story greatly, and you were just like wanting to be right. So it's like, yeah, we sometimes we listen to win and then we listen to fix. And like, that's also what you were doing. It's like, well, it's like, okay, I've heard enough. I know exactly where to tell you to go. I know exactly what to tell you to do. Anybody who's married knows that one a lot. So as great leaders or great colleagues, what we really want to lean into is listening to learn and listening to learn both through what we see, like the body language, the vocal tone. When is that shifting? When is that changing? The questions that people ask, how, or the statements that they like, and you've all seen it. You've all seen it. People bringing up the same topic over and over again. And then you think, okay, did they just forget that they brought that topic up again? But no, what are you learning from the
Right.
fact that they just brought that up again? There's something happening there.
Something similar to that I love is there's a book. I'm not sure if you've ever read a book called Conversational Capacity. And I can't
Oh,
remember the name
no.
of the author, but the concept of the book, which is
Yeah.
very similar to the 3 levels of listening you just talked about, talks
Hmm.
about when you enter into a debate or some level of conflict or an argument, there are
Right,
2
right,
extremes. One extreme, they call minimizing. And minimizing, and I've heard,
right.
I work with leadership teams all day, every day, and I've had leaders go, well, this probably isn't important, but, or I'm kind of new, but,
Mm.
or you know this better than I do,
Mhm,
but,
mhm.
or the extreme version of minimizing is keeping your mouth shut. But then the other
Right.
side is winning, when we argue to win. And
Mm.
especially when you're leading the
Mhm,
team, when you argue to
mhm.
win, which seems like the right thing to do. Of course, I should try to win the argument. But when you argue to win, you shut other
Right,
people up and you don't learn anything. But the sweet spot, which
right.
is kind of like your listen to learn, the sweet spot in the
Mhm.
middle is when you are arguing not to win, you're arguing in order to gather the information the group needs to make
Yeah,
the best decision you can make at the time. And that's
right,
very similar, I think, to the listen
right.
to learn.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I've been listening and reading about a lot of those people who coach debate and negotiation because it's a similar thing. It's like you're gathering that information. And if you really, well, unfortunately, a lot of people use that in a very negative way that, they get so much information, then they use it back to manipulate you. But that is really important to understand and to hear all of these minute points so that then you can gather it up and say, yes, I hear that. And that whole improv thing, yes, and which is a very important thing to do as a leader. And that whole winning thing is like, and as you were talking about that winning, it's like those are the people that are so high. That level for importance is up here. Their level for feeling important is up there. And it's like, God forbid anybody knock me off of my status. They're gonna hear it. I'm gonna argue, even if it's wrong. We've seen that. We've seen a lot of information examples of that in the world. Even if it's wrong, I'm gonna argue till my
I
death.
had two leaders. I've worked with some insane teams, and I had 2 leaders it was actually, they were cousins. The CEO was this woman and the head
Oh,
of product was her cousin. And they would argue like crazy and get very disrespectful because it was family. So they'd lose their minds and they thought it was okay. And at one point they was shouting at each other. And I realized they were saying the same thing. And I said, I jumped in the middle, literally jumped in the middle of them. And I said, stop. I said, you do realize you're both agreeing with each other. And the CEO pounds her fist on the table and goes, yes, but it's very important. I said, you guys are insane. So some people want to win, even they want to win
yeah.
so bad they
Even
don't
if
know
they
they've
already
already
won.
won. Exactly right. So Robyn, as we wrap up, and you've alluded to some of this, but tell us a little bit more of how you work with your clients. I know you do keynoting and coaching, but give us a sense of how you add value, how you work with your clients.
Yeah, one of the ways I work with clients is I can start with a large workshop or training workshop where I teach all of these leadership skills. I teach how to become self-aware, how to be aware of your communication style, how to look at and figure out what other people's communication styles are. And then I give actual scripts. Yeah, because we're talking about drama, right? So I'll give you scripts of how to talk to each other and how to role play a situation so that it has a more effective ending, feedback, how to give feedback, how to delegate. And so when I work with workshops like that, we give all of that. And one of the ways that I then will do is I'll have a virtual with the individuals or a smaller group so that we can dig deeper and deeper dive into some of these concepts. And then, like I'm doing now with a lot of teams, is I'll do one on one executive coaching to really just listen to what are the issues. And part of the coaching that I do is so incredibly intuitive. And I've been at this for so long that I have a toolbox that somebody said that is full of so much crap. And so somebody will say something to me, it's like, oh, this is the tool you'll need here. And then we'll talk about it. Is we'll talk about what a situation that's come up is like, and just asking questions. So yeah, it's all about the skill set and the communication and the leadership and the helping people feel seen, heard, and valued is like the basis for everything. And so I help the client feel seen, heard, and valued. And I help them see, hear, and value the people with them and give them the tools in which to do that better.
This is all going to be in the show notes, but if people want to find out more about you and all your services, where's the best place for them to go?
One of the better places is LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Hit me up on my website, robynhatcher.com, Robyn with a Y. And yeah, I'd be thrilled to have a conversation about how we can lessen the drama in your life and in your
Love it.
workplace.
Definitely take her up on that. Robyn, thanks so much. This was great. And I always say, if you want a great company, you need a great leadership team. Robyn, thanks for getting us there today.
Thank you so much, Mike, for having
Talk
me.
to you
It's been
soon.
fun.